Obviously, a lot is happening in the northern border between Israel and Lebanon. Many people wondering what is going to be happening, what we can expect. And we are very honored to be joined by Omar Nashabe, who is a lecturer at the Lebanese University and the editor of alakus.com. Omar, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to have you with us. Pleasure is all ours. And I guess I would just maybe start with the $64,000 question that everyone is asking, which is, what is the likelihood that this conflict will expand, into Lebanon or perhaps with Hezbollah, moving into northern Israel or other potential eventualities?
We're already in the conflict. I mean, we're part of the cause. I mean, in Lebanon, you have so many Palestinian refugee camps, and these people want to go back home. It's a very simple story. I mean, they are living in camps. They've been living in camps for 70, 80 years. They're refugees. They first came, they put tents. Now they build homes. And they're not allowed to. The Lebanese law does not allow them to enjoy their full rights. They are, and the conditions in the camps are difficult conditions. I mean, a Palestinian young man. Let every one of the viewers just imagine a Palestinian young man. He can't go back home. He can't work in the country where he's in. What is this guy gonna do? He's completely depressed. He doesn't have any hope. Well, when he sees this happening in Gaza, he has hope. He wants to go back home. He wants to have, a decent life like everybody. And so, therefore, the Palestinian camps is one thing that the first thing comes to my mind when I think about what's happening in Lebanon towards what's happening in Palestine. But also, Hezbollah is a leading resistance group here in Lebanon. And, Hezbollah has been calling for the liberation of Palestine since its creation. Hezbollah was born in 1982 when Israel came and occupied Beirut and committed massacres similar to those that are being committed today in Gaza. So the mood in Lebanon, yes, everybody in Lebanon, let's put it this way, everybody in Lebanon is on their phones and following TV and wanting to know in anticipation what's going to happen. It's not going to be an emotional reaction. It's not going to be a reaction. In fact, it's going to be a strategic move by the resistance. The resistance is moving away from emotions. Now it's thinking about strategies. It's thinking about tactics. It's not going to be not going to be pushed into a war without proper calculations. I think the way the arms resistance in South Lebanon that was able to liberate Lebanon from Israeli occupation in the year 2000 and was able to protect the borders of Lebanon in the Israeli onslaught in 2006. This resistance has gone stronger today. It is capable to protect the border. It is capable to help the Palestinians. And this is our moral duty. And this is how, when we see these people who were, thrown out of their homes and deprived from a country and being lied to by all these peace process that came up with nothing, and all the massacres that came out with nothing. There was not a single proper probe by the United Nations. There's a single Israeli officer taken held accountable for what they did to the people of Palestine. So I think it's normal that in Lebanon there is this mood where people are, supportive of the Palestinian people, and in anticipation of what's going to happen. If some people are talking about this huge confrontation, let's wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, all we can do is, wait and see. And every day there seems to be another sort of tit for tat, Ahmad, that's been taking place since all of this started between Hezbollah and the various Palestinian factions it's allied with in the south of Lebanon versus the Israeli military. But, since obviously there hasn't been a proper confrontation between Hezbollah and Israel since 2006, which, in that war, Hezbollah gave Israel a bloody nose, as we all know. And of course, Lebanon faced some devastating consequences as well, but was seen as coming out, kind of victorious in the sense that they proved, Israel was weaker than we all thought it was. And they kind of, weakened Israel's deterrent capacity. It's been many years since that war took place. And one of the reasons it hasn't taken place is because neither side wants a war for the most part. I mean, Israel every year Hezbollah gets stronger. Its its role in the war in Syria gave it a lot of experience in traditional warfare and made it stronger. It has a lot more weapons now. It's a much more capable and disciplined group than before. And Israel fears the damage it could do. It would be much more damage than back in 2006. And on the other side, Hezbollah obviously is not going to just jump into a war. Lebanon is facing one of the worst economic crises of any country in history, and it's a very polarized country politically. So Hezbollah has a lot to think about, and there's been this kind of like rules of engagement that these two sides have abided by for the last few years, where there's like a tit for tat, but they don't cross the threshold. But it does seem like something has changed this time around, in terms of the level of unity among the resistance across the region and the willingness to face Israel. So I guess my question for you, saying all that, is: has there been a change in the rules of engagement during this particular conflict from Hezbollah's perspective? And if so, what and why has that changed?
Yeah, well, obviously, there has been a change in the rules of engagement, but it's still limited, and it's still under control. As you say, it's a tit for tat kind of situation. But at the same time, there are Palestinian groups that are being very active. There are some, Palestinian groups that are going into Palestine from the border, making some military attacks against the Israeli occupiers and come back. And this is unprecedented. And there are also the use of drones, and tonight there was a very interesting news. There were alarms were sounding in all of the north of occupied Palestine. So and people thought that there was an incursion, and that there were drones going in, and then it turned out to be a false alarm. But a false alarm is very important in the warfare. It's a very important weapon in the psychological warfare. So we wonder if the resistance was able to hack into the system of alert, and create this kind of a situation that is in favor of the resistance and in favor of the Palestinians. Now the war is ongoing, and it's interesting. Also, there's a rocket. There was a news about a rocket that fell on occupied Haifa from Gaza. That's a very long distance, a long stretch. Anyway, I think that we have to say, amidst all this, I would like to take a few steps back and think about all these images of destruction in Gaza. We are in anticipation of what's going to happen, and and many people in Lebanon are perhaps in favor of a war and more confrontation with the Israeli enemy, because of all the images of oppression and massacres that have been committed throughout years and years, and where Israel went unpunished for all these massacres. But at the same time, we look at the pictures in Gaza, and I spoke on the phone with some friends and some doctors, and we were in contact with a friend of ours who's in the Shifa hospital in Gaza, and there's no water, there's no electricity. The electricity is going to go off in like maximum 14 hours. There's not enough fuel. In the coming week, there will be food shortages. We have to think in Beirut and everywhere around the world how we can help the Palestinians, at least on a humanitarian level. We have to think how we can send in medication, necessary medication, food, and how we can get the generators to be working again, so that the hospitals can function properly and the kids can get the proper care. I remind you that, and you reminded the viewers perhaps in the beginning of the show, that Gaza is one of the largest, most densely populated areas in the world, and it's completely besieged. And, and now they are not allowed to bring in anything, not even from the Egyptian border. And the Israelis are threatening. And the minister of the Israeli defense, he said, I don't know what Israeli defense is. It seems like it's all offense, but what he's saying is that he's not allowing anything, any food into Gaza. That's a crime against humanity, clearly. But obviously the Israelis don't care about that. They've been engaged in crimes against humanity against Palestinians and Lebanese and Syrians for many, many years. But still, I mean, we have to think about how we can put more pressure. I think the American administration, I heard today Anthony Blinken saying, no, they have to maintain a certain humanitarian passage to the Palestinians. That wasn't his position yesterday. And in fact, today we have an aircraft carrier, an Army aircraft carrier in the sea, the USS Ford. So I think the Americans now can take direct responsibility if there's a massacre and if there's a crime against humanity being repeated, because they are here. They're like a few meters away. I mean, they can see it and they're responsible of it. So we hold the American government and the American army responsible of what's going to happen in Gaza, because it seems from what we hear, from the threats we're hearing from the Israeli army and the Israeli, media, that they are preparing for a huge massacre in Gaza. And so therefore we must say today that it's a good thing that there is a huge, one of the largest army aircraft ships, American, here, so they can be held accountable, since they're here and they have this might and this power, and they have this this kind of they pretend that they are in control of the situation. They can actually ask the Israelis and coordinate with the Israelis the whole war. So any war crime that takes place, the United States will be responsible of that war crime.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good point and a well-taken point, and certainly hopefully one here in the U.S. Well, really quickly before we let you go, just wanted to also ask you, because you mentioned this briefly about, some of the Palestinian factions that are active there in the southern part of Lebanon. Any significance to that, which historically I think, was expected. They were supposed to be kept back, but here they are allowed to operate. Any significance to that for you?
Yes, it's very important, because in the past there were like internal disputes in Lebanon. Should we allow the Palestinians to throw rockets on the border? And there was some disagreement on the local level. Now we're not hearing these voices anymore. I guess because the right-wing extremists in Lebanon, their big slogan is that they're against Syrian refugees in Lebanon. So they're fed up with Syrian refugees. They're fed up with refugees. So what's the argument? We're telling, okay, Palestinian refugees want to go back home. So you're going to stop them from fighting to go back to their own homeland? So, this was a situation. And now the Palestinian factions are more united. Last month we had a big problem in one of the Palestinian camps. So in addition to all the difficult conditions in the camps, some, warring groups within the camps, they're fighting against each other, and that creates even more depression for the Palestinian people. So now there's hope. There's a good mood in the Palestinian camps. There, young boys, young families, they're dreaming. They're not dreaming of killing anyone. They're not dreaming of, kicking the Israelis out. They're not dreaming of that. They're dreaming of going back to their homes. Their homes that their grandfathers and their parents told them about, the place that where they belong. And I mean, and this is international law. International law says that there should be a viable state called Palestine. That's all they're asking for. And it's very simple. And when I go to the States and I talk to many of my American friends, they always tell me, oh, the Palestinian issue is so complicated. Well, I don't see it as complicated. It's not complicated at all. It's a very simple slogan. I just want to go back home. I'm a Palestinian. I want to go back home. That's it. So all this fighting, all this blood, all this destruction can be avoided by just giving the Palestinians the right to go back home.
Well, I think that is the exact message that we're not hearing enough of here, and we are very, very appreciative to you, Omar Nashabe, for joining us here on the Freedom Side and giving us some of your analysis here on all these situations. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.